Hey there, everybody. Sensei Lex here. Welcome to the second episode of the Bro Tour. Today, I am joined, as always, by my amazing, incredible co-host, Mr. Sloan, and a very special guest, hailing from the great state of Texas, the biggest state in the Union, if you ask a Texan, but don't ask an Alaskan about any of that. He has 4 years on the YouTube platform making Magic the Gathering content specifically for the Commander format. 11,000 subscribers, steadily approaching 12,000 subscribers, like an absolute legend. PJ, welcome to the Bro Tour.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Woo, 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 woo.
Good.
A big old wave. You guys have probably seen it by now.
Yeah. So before we jump into things, PJ, I wanted to ask you, you have one of the coolest intros I have seen on Commander gameplay videos of any kind.
Today on Commander Replay, after a rough go-around in Game 1, get ready for the Judith Grudge match against the same 3 Patreons. Next on Commander Replay.
It is incredibly intense. It's super hype. Every time I see it, right when I start to turn on a video and get into it, it's epic. It always gets me hyped. So I gotta ask, did somebody help you design this? Is this something you came up with yourself? I need the lore of the intro.
You want the lore of the intro?
Yes.
Okay. So the lore of the intro is, oh God, going back a little ways. Comedy Central in like the early to mid 2000s. There was a stand-up named Pablo Francisco. He had this whole bit on the movie liner guy, Don LaFontaine, and it basically is just an impression of that.
I met the movie previews guy in real life. He really talks like that.
This summer has Brady written all over it. Hi, Pablo, come on in here. My name is Don.
It's like, holy shit.
Okay.
Like the first time I saw that skit, I was at a friend's house and I was like actually on the floor laughing. Like I was literally, because I was already sitting on the floor to begin with, but like I was cracking up to pieces. And yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to like bring that energy, bring that kind of drama into my videos. Because like obviously MTGO isn't that exciting by itself. So I wanted to bring whatever I could into it. And I'm like, well, this is one thing that I can like kind of do. So here we go. And 700 videos later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah,
I don't think points where I ask myself, is it time to retire the intro yet and do something else? But
No, never.
No.
If you retire the intro, you have to delete your whole channel. That's the only way. Okay.
Revolts?
The intro stays for life. If the intro goes, we riot. That's just the way that this has to be. But now I know too, you also, and no offense, or maybe a lot of offense meant to the Boros mages out there. I'm not a fan of the color scheme, but you are a huge fan of Boros, and I wanted to dive into that a little bit. What gives you such a love for the worst color scheme in all of Magic the Gathering?
Whoa, hey now, them's be fighting words. So the first time I ever played Boros was like, it was when I started on MTGO, and that was probably like 2005 or 6. And it just so happened, like, they would give you your choice of a starter deck, and the 2 best starter decks, and you could play like any of the 5 starter decks for free before you signed up for like the full account. The 2 best ones were the white Time Spiral deck and the red 8th edition deck. So when I joined MTGO, the 2 starting decks that I had was the white Time Spiral Precon deck and the red 8th edition Precon deck. And then I just mixed them together. And that was my deck on MTGO for a little while. It was like, what's that card? Not white, Knight of the Holy Nimbus. A bunch of stuff like that. And like, not even Lightning Bolt. It was Volcanic Hammer, which is a sorcery speed 2-mana bolt. You're like, wow, this feels terrible by comparison. But yeah, I started with that, and like, I didn't necessarily have a love for it, and I played that deck for like probably a few months before I really like spent money to buy other decks. So like I played it for a while, and I had to figure out how to make it work. But then I was chatting with a buddy, and like Ravnica happened shortly after that, and I wasn't super in touch with the game at that point. I was only kind of like, lightly involved, and didn't get all the lore bits and stuff like that. Anyway, so he was talking about like, I'm like, this red-white deck isn't very good. And he's like, oh man, you're doing it wrong. And he was a big tournament player at the time, so like he kind of set me right, and like, oh, I see, just like fast aggro and then burn their life total out to get there. And After that, I was very much like a red deck wins type player when I was playing standard.
Love it.
So yeah, so oh god, it's probably going back like 2014, maybe, I don't know, 2013, 14, 15, somewhere around there. I was playing a lot of Magic Online, just playing Commander, and a lot of the decks at that point were just like blue black X combo. It was just like horrendous amounts of some Vampiric Tutor, go get the combo, win the game type thing.
Gotcha.
A lot of Zur and stuff like that. And I'm like, I actively wanted to do something beside that. And I remember going through Gatherer and just like looking for red white commanders. I'm like, Aurelia the War Leader. This seems kind of interesting. We'll check this out. With 2 combat steps seems all right. We'll give it a shot. And then once I started like seeing what it could do, and it took a while. It was a lot of trial and error. I started to fall in love with it. I'm like, attacking is awesome. I've always liked the combat step. Like, my favorite parts of the game are the creature related parts of the game. I like the combat step. I like shooting creatures, and I like reanimating creatures. So like my first decks were Shieldred, Aurelia, and you know what I mean, things that blow up creatures, things that attack. That's kind of my favorite part.
Yeah, excellent.
So and then it was just from there, tweaking, refining, trial and error, figuring out how to make stuff work, because it's not intuitive. It's not like you just play it one time. You're like, this was awesome, though. It took a lot of time and effort and patience to get my decks where I wanted them to be. So
I was going to say, as a longtime Commander, specifically Selesnya player, I fully endorse and understand the plight and pain of the grind that it takes to actually get a deck to that final stage, to that point where you feel like, okay, I can take this and I can consistently sit down, consistently shuffle up, and know that I'm going to have some interaction throughout. But when you remove yourself from the normal aspects of what decks seem to be doing at the rest of the, like, whatever the meta may be, especially around the time you were saying, the 2014s, the 2013s, the 2012s, where it's a lot of that like heavy Zur combo. And I mean, Zur is the great example, because Zur was the pinnacle at the time, along with your Prashas and things like that are instant combo. It's the aggro is not as important, and the combat step is not as important. When you're the one person at a table trying to get through combat, that is a feat. If you kill one person, you're like, I did it. I won. I'm out.
It's gotten a lot easier now because the creatures are so much better than they used to be.
Yes, they are.
Back then, it was much harder.
Yeah, creatures have come
I have proclaimed
a long
you.
way.
I have definitely proclaimed you as the king of Boros.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
If I had the ability, I would send you a crown, but it would be a Burger King crown, and nobody wants
that.
Man,
I'm down for a Burger King crown.
Yes, absolutely.
You are the Boros king, my friend. I've seen a lot of cool things over at your channel. And anybody out there, if you are not already subbed over to Commander Replay, get over there.
What are you doing? Why are you slacking off? Come on, guys.
I'd be very happy to have anyone who wants to stop by. There's a lot of deck building knowledge in my videos. Just people tell me that they learn a lot through my commentaries. So feel free to check me out, Commander Replay. At YouTube. Yeah,
there of course will be a link to PJ's channel in the description below if you want to go check that out. I'll make it easy for you because I know you guys are lazy, so I got you. Don't worry. But I wanted to ask you, it's slightly outside of the world of Magic, but sure. I do think it's an important topic to broach. You have, unfortunately, as thousands, if not millions of others, have been affected by the recent harsh winter storms all throughout the South, but primarily in Texas. And I wanted to ask you how you're doing with everything and what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Oh, well, so right now everything's fine. So that's cool. But it was a really scary week. To try to put it in perspective, one of the big things, so I grew up in New York where it's just cold all the time. Mm-hmm. And up there, they're prepared for cold. Houses are winterized, pipes are insulated, there's snow plows, there's rock salt. Texas doesn't have those things, especially southern Texas. And, houses are built differently. They don't build with cold weather in mind. There isn't infrastructure for cold weather in mind. So when cold weather happens, it's a really big problem, especially as cold as it got. Like, we were down, I think 7 degrees was the low that we hit. And so the power goes out at 2 a.m. I wake up probably around 7:30, and the house is already starting to get a little cold. I think it was like 20 degrees that day or something like that. And the other thing too is that, yeah, like the house is not insulated the same. I could show you a part of my ceiling where it's just wood, like it's wood, and then above that is like the asphalt shingle. There's no insulation there. Like in the north, that would be drop ceiling with insulation kind of in the middle. Like, no, I'm just looking at the outside ceiling right now.
Man.
So, you know, it's not insulated the same. Your house gets cold very quickly. And we were super concerned about like the pipes freezing and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so we get into this mess, power goes out. They're putting out some updates on Twitter, and it's like, oh, we're going to try to rotate the power. And then, you know, time's passing by and it's going to be rolling blackouts. And like, it's been 12 hours now. Our power has not come back on. It's starting to get really cold in the house. What are we going to do? And, you know, it was kind of a debate. We had a friend whose power was still on. So we're like, hey, we should go there. We were literally packed up, ready to leave. Our power came back on. And it was on for about 2.5 hours. And then it goes off again, probably about 5:30, 6 p.m., something like that. Maybe it's a little earlier than that. And so like we call our friend back up, like, hey, we're coming back over now. And I literally couldn't get out of my driveway. It was so icy. Like I started trying to go up the hill on my street and my tires were just spinning. And I'm like, the car won't go anywhere because the roads haven't been plowed. There's no rock salt. Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing to get rid of the snow. And like in the north, they plow and you know what I mean? The snow goes away, at least some of it anyway. And like my car literally wouldn't go anywhere. So we had to stay the night. It got down to like 46 degrees in the house. And it was not a great time. It was very cold. All of our food spoiled because the power went out during the middle of the night. And by the time we woke up, all the food's bad. So, and then because the power was out, eventually there was one of the water plants power went out. So now there's a boil water notice in effect. So, you know, the whole week was just like, it was this feeling of like, how much worse is it going to get? There's no electricity. There's no heat. Your food has gone bad. And now there's a boil water notice in effect.
Yeah.
That was kind of everything rolling together. And you're like, wow, this is terrifying. Staying at our friend's house, we were like, okay, but you just have that like nervous thought in the back of your mind. Like, what if his power goes out? Then what? And, you know, it was very scary. And there's a lot of like political stuff going on there. And, you know, really the situation is they didn't winterize the gas pipes and the wind turbines and all this stuff. There's a whole recommendation that they were supposed to do it 10 years ago. They never did. And then when it got cold, all the power goes out and then it causes kind of a chain reaction of problems. And it sucked. It was really bad.
We're actually both from Idaho.
Okay.
And so up here, you know, it gets cold.
Yeah.
Like I'm still currently in Idaho and, you know, I'm on the other side of winter here. It wasn't as bad of a winter for us as it normally is, but I mean, we get a decent amount of snow. You know, you go up north a little bit, we get a couple feet,
right?
You know, little just outside of town. And so we understand a lot of that really, really harsh cold, but like you said, we're insulated.
Yeah.
We have good insulation. You know, a lot of our building codes actually specify, like you literally can't even pass an inspection out here unless you've done proper insulation, you've done, you know, the proper thickness of drywall. And then on the other side, you've done a proper wall of sheeting to make sure that there is that barrier surrounding all of your piping and anything like that. Most of our digs are actually underneath. So they want you to run all your water piping right underneath the house so that little bit of heat that would be there will be enough to kind of keep that from freezing in the middle of the night.
Right.
So definitely a lot of those things are implemented, but going out to something like Texas, my heart definitely goes out to all of you. My heart definitely goes out to you as well. And to your family, because that's a horrible situation. That's a terrifying situation. And, you know, I know this is about Magic, but the whole aspect of Magic is the community, the gathering.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so
it was a very scary week.
Yeah, I can only imagine, you know, what that's like. That's a tremendous ordeal to go through. in a totally different way. You know, with my family, I've experienced living through hurricanes and how terrifying that can be, and those sort of natural disasters. And some way I can relate to that fear of, you know, that instability, not necessarily feeling safe in your own home, which is a very difficult feeling. And so, yeah, my heart, and I know Sloane's as well, it goes out to you guys. It really does. And, you know,
Sweet. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I know it's not much. It's just us on the internet saying we feel bad, but you know, I still feel like these kind of conversations are important. You know, a card, at the end of the day, it's a card game. It's fun. It's great. It's a wonderful hobby to have and a great way to pass time. But the people behind the cards are so much more important than that. And you know, is there anything within the community that we could do, you know, to help people right now in Texas? Any organizations or anything you might be able to think of off the top of your head? Not to put you on the spot or anything that I could link to that maybe people could donate to.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I'd have to go look. Right now, I know it's kind of a political thing that, like, do you guys watch Last Week Tonight? There's a fantastic Last Week Tonight that, like, the week after it happened, he kind of talks about a lot of the stuff, and he does it in a very succinct way. And, you know, I think the big thing is probably getting involved in politics and trying to get some legislation going to prevent this from happening again, because it will happen again if no one does anything.
No, that makes absolutely sense. No, I love John Oliver's program, as millions of others do. But yeah, it's hard to see when you have that kind of reality set in, especially when a situation like that was absolutely avoidable, and powers that be chose to make it inevitable instead of correcting it. Right. And yeah, that's it. It's awful. But to steer things back to the world of Magic, and of course, thank you so much for sharing some of your story with us, and for giving us a look inside your world.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very, very much. One quick question though, to kind of wrap that up. Are you home?
Yeah, I'm home. I'm
and home is safe?
Home is safe. Everything was fine. We came back, you know, had that nervous moment where we turned the water back on. You're like, well, is there going to be an inch of water, a foot of water in the house? And everything was fine. So no breaks. Everything was cool.
That's what I'm talking about. There it is.
Also, I learned how to turn a water main on.
Ooh,
there was a lot of, like, skills. Yeah, there was a lot of skills I picked up that week, that, like, things I had never thought about before. I tried to boil some water with a tea kettle by putting candles underneath it. It was mildly effective. It was not.
You were doing some cutthroat kitchen right there.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no power, so I'm like, well, I can try to make some hot water.
You're going back to, like, Little House on the Prairie. You know, you're feeling what your ancestors felt.
I think I put a picture of it on Twitter. I've got a picture of it somewhere. I'll post it somewhere.
Yeah, all right, if we find that picture, go ahead and send that over, because we'll drop that down in. I'm gonna see this.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so now we have this little goofy segment we like to call the Magic Minute. There's a funny little jingle that my brother helped me put together for this segment that we're going to insert right about here.
It's a Magic Minute.
Now, for the Magic Minute, I'm going to go around the virtual room here and ask my co-patriots something interesting that's been happening to them in the last couple of weeks in regards to Magic. Some interesting gameplay experiences they may have had, some new cards coming out in an upcoming set that are looking really appealing to them, maybe some changes they're making to a personal deck.
For my Magic Minute, I am actually going to be doing a Derevi Voltron build. I happen to have a lot of the pieces laying around right now, so I decided, okay, I want to rebuild Derevi, but I got to do them without the stacks. It's got to be a challenge. I've done it too many times.
I know that's hard for you.
Do a little Voltron action. It is. It hurts. People don't understand. It's like, imagine going outside, right? Going outside. And you got your pants on, but you ain't got your underpants on. All right? That's weird. That's uncomfortable, because I'm a Levi's guy. I wear jeans. I'm not wearing jeans right now, but I wear jeans. I'm not wearing jeans with no underpants. You ever tried that? It is horrific.
It's a recipe for chafing, my friend.
Do not recommend it.
Don't do it.
It is
it'll be mightily uncomfortable.
It's a recipe for Gold Bond. So I will be doing a full Voltron build. I mean, it's not going to be anything with like swords. I'm going to go more enchantment heavy. I happen to have a lot of enchantment pieces and a lot of enchantresses, so I'm just going to kind of lean into that and just have a little bit of fun with it. You know, do a little slippery boggles. You know, a
Sweet.
little backup plan, little core spirit dancer.
Love
Gotta
it.
Yeah.
love that card, man. Love that card. You know, it's not anything flashy. It's not anything special, but boy, you slap a couple auras on that. She's a beefy girl. She's a beefy girl.
Absolutely.
Your biggest challenge with that deck will be cutting down the clock. So lots of double strike, finest hour, and any way that you can speed up that clock is where you're going to want to be with that deck.
Absolutely.
That's my hope. That's my thought. Is anything that can just kind of get me out the gate as fast as possible, bring it down as quick as possible, and just target. Boom, boom, boom. One big spell, and the game. Be done.
Battle Mastery is a fun Magic card. Who knew?
It is.
And what about you, PJ? What's been going on in your Magic world?
Oh my. I don't know if you guys are aware of how much Magic I actually play, but it's a lot. I filmed like 4 Boros decks in the last week, which is actually unusually high. I had a lot of like Patreon decks come in, so lots of that. I've been trying to personally fine-tune my own Aurelia Weapons of War list, which is my Aurelia Voltron deck that I've been playing for like since the channel started, even before that. So there were so many powerful things printed in Commander Legends and Kaldheim that it is genuinely difficult to settle that deck list, because there's probably 115 really good cards and you don't get room for 115 cards. So whatever you put in, something else is getting left out that is like really good and like makes you a little sad. So been trying to work through that and figure out what's going on there. Other than that, just been trying to build through a lot of Kaldheim stuff. There's a lot of really powerful cards in that set, especially the
So what are
Definitely.
you seeing out of Kaldheim? What are you seeing right now that's really hitting the interest?
So the trend is like the gods. With the gods, it's like cast the god, play one card that you probably have like is a common card in those colors, and the game's insane. For Teralf, a burn spell. For Orvar, you blink or you target one of your things, and it's insane. Turgrid is any discard and any sacrifice effect, and like if that happens, you are so far ahead of your opponents, it's insane. So it's like it's really crazy that how strong they actually are, because it's like it's your commander, and it's like one card that you have probably 10 different copies of, and just wildness happens. It's not like the old Azami deck where it's like, oh, you hit Mind Over Matter, the game ends. There's one Mind Over Matter. So, what I mean? You have to find it. It's not the easiest thing to find in blue. No, it's like any of like 10, 15, 20 cards that exist. And it's not exactly game ending in the same way, but it's like, it's still really ridiculous. So the cards are super, super strong. There's a lot of good stuff. I was putting in a card order earlier today, trying to like figure out, I'm like, all right, want that's a little too expensive. We're going to wait on that one. And, see what prices are coming down. But yeah, the cards are insane in Kaldheim. Commander Legends had a bunch of crazy Boros stuff. And yeah.
No,
Nice.
I've been
Nice.
loving Mystic Reflection lately. That card it's a bananas card. I have so much
Is
fun
that the
playing
one
with
that
deck.
changes the creatures
Yes.
that enter the battlefield? Yeah, I got hit with that earlier. I was going to
Man.
have 3 Tidespout Tyrants,
Oh.
and it was going to be...
Yep.
they were no longer 3 Tidespout Tyrants.
Yep, they're now Llanowar elves or whatever. It is a dumb magic card.
Yep.
I've been playing it in a Unesh deck of mine that I have personally. I love the Tribal Sphinxes, as I've been slowly souping the deck up over time. And that card has been just a monster, not just for controlling the creatures my opponents are playing, but like making multiple copies of the same Sphinx just gets absolutely out of control. You're factor fictioning like a crazy person. It's absolutely fun, and I adore it. But aside from playing filthy blue spells, I've been just adjusting to the dynamics of a new group. That's been a big change. So the family recently moved, so leaving one playgroup and now coming to a new area and getting into the dynamics of meshing and gelling with new people is always interesting. I've had a lot of fun so far. Shout out to my homeboy Fred. But it's been strange dynamics for sure. It's always a test phase, trying to make sure that everybody's playing on a similar power level, that everybody's getting along and being friendly with one another, and that that everybody's having fun. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important part of the game, is that everybody enjoys what you're doing, whatever power level or whatever you're playing at. And so that's been an experience for me. And I have noticed, and this is going to be my transition into our main topic of the day. Ooh, very sexy. So I have noticed within my local group, power creep has really set in. Power creep in general has been a trend in Magic now basically since Wizards really took a proactive role in printing cards specifically on demand for Commander. But in my local group, I have noticed, for instance, we have one player, actually several players now, who are going out of their way because they've seen me and one other person play more powerful decks to enter into sort of an arms race where they're going out of their way to add more free counter magic to their decks, more interaction to their decks, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just when playgroups start to add these power shifts and these power dynamics to their groups, it can change how the game is played, and it can change people's attitudes towards the game, if that makes sense. I think a lot of times people come to Commander as kind of a safe haven from formats like Standard and Modern or Legacy and things that are hyper focused around being ultra competitive. And when your group starts to become more and more competitive, I feel like, and I could be wrong on this, it's fine, people can correct me here or in the comments, but I feel like when you start to become hyper competitive, you chip away at the social dynamic that makes Commander so unique. And I don't mean this as like a shot against competitive EDH. I love competitive EDH. I play it regularly. To me, it's very enjoyable and fun when everybody's on the same power level. I'm talking more so about those groups who begin very casually and then start optimizing their more casual decks over time, and how that can really fundamentally change the social interactions at the table. And I'm curious, starting with you, PJ, some of your thoughts on this. If anything, like you've experienced like any of this kind of power creep lately in your own Magic playing.
So obviously the power is shifting. I remember being at GP Vegas in 2019. Thank you to all my Patreons who helped send me there. Anyway, so I was at GP Vegas. I was watching one of the panels. Gavin spoke, Shivam spoke, a few other people spoke. Scott Larrabee, Rules Committee. And one of the things that I noticed was that at that point in time, the power of the cards they were printing didn't match up with how the Rules Committee talked about the format. They talked about Commander being supposedly like a fun social experience, I think is kind of how they were talking about it at that point in time. And I'm like, that was right around the time that Modern Horizons came out, and Modern Horizons is insane. Like
the monster.
Yeah, Sisay Weatherlight Captain. I think Golos was like
Urza.
right around that. It was like a few months after that. Urza,
Yawgmoth.
Hogak had to be banned, and
Yep.
you know what I mean. That type of stuff. So like, the way people were talking about the format didn't match up with the cards they were printing, which were super pushed. And it's taken me a while to like understand what that means and kind of digest that information. And the game's just in a stronger place than it used to be. It's not the same. Like, trying to think of, you can't run like one of the uncommon vanilla legends out of Legends. Like, that's not a commander you would want to run anymore, like Jedit Ojanen or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you could, like, don't let me stop you, but it's just not going to be the same as like having some value engine in the command zone, which most things are now.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of the big shift is, obviously there's a lot of power. It changes a lot of things in the game. It's not all bad. Like, I talked about kind of that 2013, 2014, 2015. Back then, there were only a handful of powerful things you could be doing. The number of powerful decks you could build was fairly limited, and the number of ways that you could win with those decks would also be somewhat limited. Now, you can build almost anything to be powerful. And sure, there's a ceiling on that power somewhere, but I do like the fact that I can build a really strong Boros deck. I didn't get to play my Aurelia deck for a long time because it was too strong for the people I was playing with. So like it had to sit in the box because I'm like, that's a little too aggressive right now. So that's gotta stay on the shelf. But I do like the fact that I can choose to build that strong if I want to with most things, as opposed to 5-10 years ago. The powerful options were very limited. There was the boogeyman of the format, a couple other things. There were maybe 10 really powerful commanders, and everyone else is kind of just significantly worse than that. So, I do like having the option. It streamlines the games. It makes them quicker. One big thing, if you've drafted Commander Legends, in my experience, you get into these like big board stalls late in the game that like it's turn 15 and no one can break through. And that reminds me a lot of old Commander. That's how old Commander used to feel. You're living off the top of your deck. You're not drawing enough cards. You're waiting a half hour for your turn to come back because someone else is taking a while. And, you're just not able to impact the board when your turn comes back. You're like, this kind of sucks. This does not feel great.
Yeah.
And so, now it's much easier to impact the board every single turn of the game, assuming that you aren't completely out of cards. So there are a lot of changes, but not all of it's bad. A lot of it is good.
So do you think that, given the current shift in the meta and given what the meta is like doing now, when I say meta, I want to be very specific because I'm speaking on meta as a whole rather than individualized metas, because there are those that are still playing very casually, which again, I think one thing we need to really iterate here is we're not necessarily taking a stance in a direction of, anything that CEDH is, taboo, get it out of here, or anything casual is just a bunch of filthy casuals. We're not taking a stance either direction because I know Lex and I both own decks on the entire scale. We own, we own and build decks for any table. But do you think that the meta as a whole, because of this power creep and because of this increase, I think power creep is the easiest way to put it, but I like I like the term you used, push. Do you think because of this push, we don't really have a choice? Do you think the meta is forced into these higher powered games, or is there still that opportunity to play at a little bit of a slower pace, similar to the experience you said you had drafting Commander Legends? Do you think that's still available, or is that just kind of something that's gone?
What I think is, it's not exactly going to be like the Commander Legends draft, because I only drafted one, but it was legitimately turn 15, and we're just like, wow, I can do nothing. This sucks. This feels terrible. And sure, I didn't know the draft set that well, and I could have drafted better and all that. But I talked to a lot of other people that were also like, no, that's kind of how it is. You just get stuck, and there's some big green creature with reach, so even flyers can't get through, or whatever the case is. And so what I've heard, and I haven't done anything to confirm this, fact check this. So in the comments, let us know. But supposedly there was an internal push at Wizards to actually speed up Commander, and that would make sense based on what you see the cards doing, because it's kind of tough to sell people on a game that's going to go 3 hours, especially if they get stuck, if they're new. You know what I mean? It's hard to recruit new players into this 3 hour grind that might go all night because it's a 6-man pod and no one has a finisher or a combo or anything.
Yeah.
So
we're looking at you, Risk. We're looking at you, Risk. Speed it up.
Yeah. So I heard that there was a push to streamline the format, which makes sense given the cards we've seen. And I do enjoy the fact that it is a little more streamlined now. If I'm out of cards and I know that I can't impact the board, just end the game, right? Just end the game so I can start the next one. I can play a different deck. I can play a couple different decks in a night now. I might be able to get maybe about 4 games is probably the most I would normally get in a night. But that's much better than 2. I'd rather have 4 games in a night than 2 really long ones.
Yeah, definitely absolutely. Not all aspects of power creep are negative. Many can be quite positive. And speaking to your point about Wizards having an internal push to speed up Commander, If anything, I know there was a program that they switched to for a while, because for a while Wizards of the Coast would have former Pro Tour Magic players who would come help in the card design process to help them balance cards for formats, not Commander specifically, but formats like Standard, Modern, etc. And now that Hasbro has taken a more aggressive action with Wizards of the Coast. For those who don't know, Wizards of the Coast is a subsidiary of Hasbro, and Hasbro is a subsidiary of Disney. And anyway, Hasbro has been applying pressure to WotC because it's, in an effort to make money. It's what you got to do. You have to push power levels. So they created this program they call the FIRE program. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but in essence, to just stop giving a shit about bannings and just print uber powerful effects and kind of let the meta sort itself out. And so that's why we've seen so many historical amounts of bannings across Standard, Modern, virtually every single format because of this program being implemented. And that, of course, would bleed over into Commander, because lately Wizards of the Coast has realized the cash cow that they have in Commander. It's the most popular format of Magic. It's played by, I would argue, probably millions of people enjoy this game, and it's only getting bigger and better as time goes on. And so they realize, it's essentially 100 card singleton legacy. We can print literally anything into this format and people will play it. And so what I'm curious about now, question I'd like to pose to you guys, is now that we have seen cards like Jeweled Lotus, Hole Breacher, the black flash creature who steals people's searches, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now. Opposition Agent, thank you. Very, very powerful effects. These cards, in essence, have become the new baseline. So in order for Wizards to peddle more product to the masses, in theory, they're going to have to print Hole Breacher Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, Jeweled Lotus Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, effects that become even more powerful than effects we have now that are incredibly powerful. If you thought Fierce Guardianship was great, wait until you see Fiercer Guardianship, this time with even less restrictive of a cost. So where it becomes more and more powerful over time, but ultimately, do you think there's a point where it becomes too unhealthy for the format to have so many uber powerful cards within the format?
So the joke that I kind of tell everyone is that at the rate we're going, the game will be decided on turn 0 with a bunch of alternate and free costs in the next couple years. It's a joke until it isn't. Yep.
Yep.
But, yeah. So a little power creep is fine. Too much power creep, and I think there are definitely cards that fit the too much power creep category. Too much power creep is bad. You said they were the baseline, Opposition Agent, Hole Breacher, Jeweled Lotus. I don't consider those the baseline. Those are still anomalies in the rest of the other cards that they printed in that set. The rest of Commander Legends was relatively tame. Instead of power going up, other than those 3 cards, I think it was actually the power kind of went sideways. It's just okay, this isn't necessarily more powerful than something else. You can just choose to build around this other thing instead. Mm-hmm. It's not grossly more powerful than other things that existed. It's just I can make this choice and build around this theme instead of this other theme, and it probably still ends up around the same place power-wise, other than those 3 cards. So to me, those 3 cards are still statistical anomalies. Mm-hmm. If you were just to put a number on them and to declare or to figure out what their power actually is. Yeah, there will be more of those. There's always going to be a couple really powerful cards in every set because they help sell a set. It will take time, but eventually there will be more. I hope that some point they realize that their cards can be too strong. Putting Hate Bears that strong on with Flash, nonetheless, on a 3-mana creature is insane. I've heard a lot of people compare Hole Breacher to Narset. Narset doesn't have Flash. Mm-mm. Narset
Right.
doesn't stop. I think the wording's different. Narset, you can still draw one with the Ristic Study during someone else's
Yes.
turn. So Narset is not as punishing as a Hull Breacher. And I get it, Hull Breacher's a little bit more fragile creature, but it's such a powerful effect, and it has flash, and it has like the most powerful form of that don't draw wording. So, I don't think they should go that far. I think they need to rein it back some. Like you can print powerful cards without printing that.
True.
Without printing like you can't play the game. This fundamental part of the game, you can't do that any longer. And there's a difference between that and also just like a powerful proactive card. So, for the longest time, Avenger of Zendikar was the like you play Avenger of Zendikar, you get table killing amounts of power. Now you've got what's the other green one? It's the one out of Ixalan. I always forget the name of. But you've got like Coma now. And stuff like that, where that stuff's a little different in that it doesn't stop my ability to play the game necessarily. Like it puts a very threatening amount of damage on board, but I can interact with that by playing a board wipe or something. And but it's a very delicate balance, and I think they've crept the power too hard. Like I don't mind some power creep, but I think they like instead of having just like little kind of tick-ups, it's like here to here, in the matter of a year or two. And you really feel that. And, getting blown out by a Hull Breacher or opposition agent feels terrible. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think there was a huge test of water, and I've actually referenced this before to Alex in conversation that Magic as a whole was in a really, really, I feel like a really healthy place around 2015. And specifically, not just Commander, but I feel like in Modern, there was a lot of really healthy decks running around. The meta was pretty open. Legacy's always been pretty streamlined. You have your top five, and then Standard was Standard. Standard is always going to be broken. That's how Standard works. You find 3 decks, you take the 3, good to go. Commander, however, was in a really, really good place. I feel like Commander, you had the ability to. It was in a good place, but it was also in a strange, unhealthy place because there was the split between the casual tables and the competitive tables. And there was that balance of like knowing, okay, I either belong here, I don't belong here. And obviously that's an objective statement, meaning everyone belongs at anywhere you want to be. But if you're going to go and sit down, you need to know that you're not going to get completely blown out, or you're not going to be the pub stopper.
Yeah.
In 2015, I feel like we had a really healthy meta for Commander, but in 2016, they decided to release a line of Commander products that were absolutely bananas. And they introduced us to partner commanders. And ever since then, Thrasios has sat in any slot as one of the highest powered commanders to date. I mean, that's up against commanders, right? And I'm speaking right now from the meta being, Turgid's had a huge resurgence, or a big surge in her ever since her printing. She's becoming very, very powerful, very easily broken. Urza's, we mentioned Urza earlier. Urza's just absolutely disgusting. There's a lot of these really, really high powered and high valued commanders, but I feel like in 2016 is when they really tested the waters. And I feel like that's what Jeweled Lotus, Opposition Agent, Hull Breacher are. These are cards where they test the water a little bit. And they're like, how far can I take it? Because imagine a Hull Breacher in 2015. We wouldn't have known what to do. I mean, the metas would have absolutely been like, oh my God, what do we? So we all play blue, when at that time you could be running around against a Selesnya build or just a simple Grixis build that's more focused on the Rakdos, and the blue is there for a Ristic Study, a Mystic Remora. But now that focus has to be on what I like to look at them as the power colors. You have to in some degree, if you want to build into the highest power and you want to play at that CEDH level, you're either going 5 color, or you're going to be running blue, you're going to be running black. And if you're not running black, you're running blue. If you're not running blue, you're running black, kind of thing. Because I feel like those two have gotten so much power. Now, that's not to discredit green. because I feel like the color green itself has gotten absolutely out of hand.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that new Vorinclex.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
That
That's
guy.
another one of those like one card plus your commander. Any planeswalker.
Magus
go wild.
of the doubling season, basically. Yeah, that card is
Yeah.
is spicy. It's weird, you reference that was right around the era where Sloan and I started playing, 2015. And not to come across as too much of a boomer, back in my day kind of a deal, but it is true. In that era of Magic, there was a very clear dichotomy between casual EDH and competitive EDH, and almost like a civil war between the two camps. A lot of people, you didn't see a lot of crossover like you do today. And in some ways, I think
there's a third category there. I think you had your heavy value commanders. I think you had your like Bragos and your Marins that were kind of this third category of like high power commander. And those are the ones like if you took your like whatever tribal deck into those, that's where you would just get crushed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they were trying to play CEDH, but that commander is just like way better than blank tribal commander that you were trying to play.
Yeah, they're a level above casual.
Thank you.
But they're slightly below competitive.
Right.
As an avid Brago player, thank you.
God, I had to bring up
played Brago the
Brago.
other day for the
He's
first
got
time.
such a chubby right now. Brago's like his
Dude,
favorite thing in the world.
I gotta adjust my pants here.
I mean, that was kind of the start of where you started to see like the value engine commanders. I remember like Brago and Marin kind of jump out at me from that time frame of like, wow, these cards do a little too much and or a lot too much. Maelstrom Wanderer. Oh,
yeah, Maelstrom Wanderer. Giving me horrible MTGO game flashbacks. I've seen that guy so much on MTGO.
Same
but no, it's very interesting to gauge it, because I think in many ways, even though cards are progressively becoming more powerful, in many ways the commander meta of today is, I would argue, opposite of you, Sloan. I would say that the meta of today is healthier than the meta of 2015, 16, specifically Commander. Other formats, I can't really speak to those. But for Commander, I would say it's healthier today than it has been, in spite of the power creep, which seems odd, because you would think the more power you add, the more unstable you're going to make it. But I think because Commander is so different than other formats, and the culture of Commander is so different, it's so much more geared towards being social and towards being creative. People are always building new decks, and the card pool is so deep. So people are pulling from Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Revised, and beyond. They're just pulling from every single set of Magic. And so, in essence, like, Wizards can continue to pump powerful spells into the format, but the format kind of has its own self-healing ability in a strange way to be able to kind of bounce back from whatever they push into the Commander universe. And I would say too, to a point you were making earlier, PJ, about how there's this difference between the rules committee, and they say one thing, but Wizards does a total different thing. I really feel like it would be really healthy for there to be a more open line of communication between the RC and Wizards of the Coast. Because I understand Wizards is trying to sell cards and make their money. Go out and get your hustle on and get your grind on, make your money. But it's also important to keep Commander special and unique like it is, and to keep it healthy. And in order to do that, I think you really need to be in touch with people who are in the RC and are in that area of Commander. And for Wizards to just sort of blatantly disregard them at times, I think, is not healthy for the long-term future of the game. And I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I actually talked to Sheldon about this when the Walking Dead thing happened. I did a little email interview with him, and so the way he described their relationship is they're strategic partners. I think people read into certain actions by WotC and they take too many liberties with what things mean, or they draw conclusions that aren't there necessarily. They consider themselves strategic partners, and when I said the way the RC was talking about the format and the cards WotC were printing, like, I didn't mean that WotC was trying to spite them. I honestly think, the direction from WotC was, one, streamline the format, two, to some degree, I think that some of the commander stuff they design, they don't quite have that feel of fun and powerful without making it like spiky and powerful. You know what I mean? I think sometimes like maybe they undercost it by one or two a little bit too often. And if you add two casting costs to a card, that's gonna make it like way less spiky than if you got to pay 7 mana for it instead of 5 or 5 instead of 3, whatever the case is. So I think there's some of that going on there. But there's this other thing I started thinking about the other day too, is that a lot of commander staples, many of them are older. There are many older commander staples that come from, there's quite a few from like M10 through M15. There's a bunch of stuff, that's kind of where your cultivates show up, but Kodama's Reach is older than that. Sakura Tribeld are older than that. So you have these like really old staples. I think what WotC might be doing, if they might be, there's probably someone in that company that's smart enough to figure this out. By printing such powerful cards, you actually replace older staples. And for them, it's actually financially beneficial if there are more staples out of more recent sets than out of these sets that were printed 15 and 20 years ago. So that's really deep thinking. I don't know if they've thought about that, but it's something that kind of crossed my mind recently, that like, hey, it's not super helpful for our bottom line if people are trying to dig up these old gems from the early 2000s and trying to find these weird old cards. We can just print a better one of that card, and now that'll be the staple, and that'll drive more business toward our newer products. So I think there's some of that too.
Yeah, from a business perspective, that makes absolute sense. And
Right.
Who knows, maybe we are drawing conclusions that aren't there, but I think that's kind of the nature of content creation and formats like this. I think it's important to kind of connect these dots and see where things could potentially go, because the commander of today, and of course, it's Captain Obvious point, things change over time, but
Right.
the commander of today is drastically different from the commander of 5 or 6 years ago, when Sloan and I were just playing around a kitchen table and had Dickie McGeezak's idea of what we were doing. And now you look at it today, and it is a totally different game in so many ways. And my biggest concern always moving forward is I want this game, no matter how powerful cards become, no matter if we start seeing like Teletubbies being printed in secret lair sets and stuff, to have this game.
Dude, there it is.
Have this game stay. I mean, come on, who doesn't want a legendary Tinky Winky exclusive card? Let's go. Foil, hollow edged, rare.
Dude, let's get
Let's
it.
go.
Let's get it.
I want the game
on Twitter the other
to stay
day.
healthy. Yeah, go for it.
On Twitter the other day, I posted my my Top Gun crossover cards.
Oh, there we go.
So you can have cards for Maverick, Goose, Iceman.
Iceman.
You could have a card that's just an
let's take up
equipment
this
that's just
30-year-old
like the
franchise.
aviator glasses,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
vehicles that are jets, fighter
so
jets.
So I think a good clarification on this is I see where the meta is now, and I see that there is a lot of opportunity when it comes to building. So another little deck brewing idea I've had is building into Varina, because zombies are I feel like zombies are going to get a little more support coming forward, and I feel like there's going to be another set with it. First of all, werewolves, Innistrad, let's go, baby, let's go. I've had every single werewolf and wolf purchased since the release of SOI.
Nice.
I've been sitting on all the Innistrad, all the Dark Ascension, because I am waiting. And then they gave me Ulrich. They shit all over me with an Ulrich of the Crawling
Sorry,
Heart.
friend.
That is the worst.
Yeah.
The worst commander I have ever played in my life. And my first deck was an Aelie Eternal Pilgrim deck, and that was garbage. But that was terrible. So I'm waiting on that one. But I've actually considered building a Varina deck. And I know, looking at it now, it has an opportunity to compete even in my meta, and my meta being a more higher powered meta and something that's a lot more fast, a lot more aggressive, a lot of combos. Even there, I still have an opportunity to compete. So I will give this the ability for commander builds to be unique is massive. It's completely different from the 2015, 2016s, and so on and so forth. I absolutely see that. I worry kind of like where you are, Lex. I worry about the future. I worry about what could happen to the future. But I really like that point you make there, PJ. I really like that they aren't necessarily doing this as a way to devastate the game, and they're not doing this as a way just to make money. They're doing it as a way to possibly replace older versions of these cards, because a lot of the time, I mean, what money do they make on a second market? You know, if we're just running on TCG Player or Card Kingdom and picking it up, or going down to your LGS and buying it out of the case, you're not really helping their bottom line at all.
Right.
Nothing is changing. It's just shifting hands. That's all that's happening. So I definitely can see that, and I can definitely appreciate that. I just don't want to see it get to that unhealthy point. You know, I want to make sure that we stay in a good place, because this is such a safe haven for so many people.
Yeah, there's a couple points I wanted to jump on. One, there's the point that Lex had somewhere a little while back, and you were saying that, like, to the effect that people aren't building the most powerful versions of decks all the time now. I think people have a better understanding. I think the conversation's there that this format can be a lot of fun if you don't do the most powerful thing available to you with a given deck. And I also think because of the pandemic, you're not necessarily getting the influx of new players that I think you would. So I think, in my opinion, people that are playing the game right now are really into the game. They've probably been into the game for a while. You're just not having that like foot traffic at a shop of like, hey man, come down this week, and, you know, like that type of thing. Come check this out. Yeah. So, you know, I think the people that are still playing, buying cards, consuming content are the people that have been doing it for a while and are just really into the game. So they're very invested. And, you know, with those people have an understanding that, like, yeah, if I hold back a little on this deck, we're all going to have a better time. And I think that's a big part of it. I think people are starting to understand that more, that you can build decks to be heinous and broken. And there's a guy I faced on Magic Online a couple times. He's playing Zur. How fast do you think a top tier Zur deck is in a 1v1?
Well, I don't know all the ban lists of 1v1 Commander, but like if we're
standard ban list, so normal Commander ban list, but a 1v1 game. So Mana Crypt, Vampire 2,
turn 2 or 3 easily with all the fast
turn 2 consistent.
Mana. Yeah,
consistent turn 2 through removal. They have like enough. There's a free counter in there to get rid of one piece of interaction. Consistent turn 2. That's how strong things can be.
Definitely. At those, I had an opportunity to get to play with Play to Win the other day. Have a game up on the channel. Quick shout out to myself. Go check it out. It's a cool gameplay. But
nice.
Yeah, no, those competitive decks, you know, that's CEDH, man. It is blindingly fast, and if you're
gotten faster.
Yeah. With all the free interaction now, it's insane. Like, you can just dump your whole hand and have 3 counter spells in your hand to protect everything you're trying to do. It's out of control. I mean, it's fun. Like, I equate it like, it's the difference between casual commanders, kind of like a rally car race. You know, these little goofy cars out there that might crash into each other a little bit. They might look like some Mad Max shit going on, spikes hanging out the top and stuff. But CEDH is like Maseratis on the ultimate smooth racetrack. Like, it's vroom cruise. We're going to hit this turn 2, turn 3. They're very different animals, but they are fun if you're playing. Driving the Maserati on the Maserati track is fun if you also have a Maserati. If you pull up in your dilapidated Ford Pinto, you are not going to have a good time. And frankly, the people
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. You take a Ford Pinto out on the Maserati track, you'd be the one guy just
doing 6 miles an hour.
Yep, doing 6 miles an hour. Yep.
Yeah, so that's I think Commander is at its best when all 4 players have a relatively similar powered deck.
Absolutely.
If that's CEDH, then it's CEDH. I like playing CEDH occasionally. I don't like playing it all the time. But if I've got my CEDH deck, I know the stakes. I've got a chance. If I can get my stacks piece down nice and early, then I'm golden, and the Winota flood starts. But what feels bad? What feels bad is when someone brings their CEDH deck to a mid-powered casual table. even a high power
Oh,
deck
yeah.
down to like a mid power casual table can feel not great.
Mm-mm.
And that's where that conversation really comes in.
Yeah.
I did a whole video on this last week. I think it was last week. And just talking about power level, like the most difficult subject in this game. And, try to boil a lot of things down into like, just a couple seconds here. But, the big thing is the questions you ask. Asking a number doesn't tell you anything about a deck. Understanding how fast that deck is, if it's going to win by combo or if it's going to win by, some sort of single card finisher. Generally understanding how the deck's going to win gives you some idea of like what deck you should bring to a table. Like, okay,
Definitely.
this is going to win on turn 10. Okay, we can be in for a slower game and I can probably grab some fun tribal deck, something like that. If it's going to be turn 3, turn 4, okay, stacks, counter spells, everything needs to be like
Yep.
1 and 2 mana, that sort of thing. So, it's just all about like understanding what someone's deck does just a little bit, having that conversation makes the game a lot more fun. There was one point that Sloan made earlier that I wanted to jump on, talking about can we have the 15-turn game these days? It's possible. You just need to run a lot of removal and probably some discard. The last 3 or 4 games that I played this week have just been absolute removal fests. And we've kind of gotten to that like late game, everyone's living off the top of their deck type of thing. Not a lot of stuff in play, mostly lands. And you're like, all right, who's going to find something? And, you can kind of recreate that old Commander feel by running crap tons of removal and running everyone out of resources, which may not be the preferred way to play, but someone was playing a Sabra deck. So we were all, it was
Yeah.
Sabra and Turgid at the table. So everyone was hurting a lot.
Yeah, no, I recently built a Turgid, and every time I've played that deck, that's what it turns into. It turns into a removal grind fest, where it's like, hey, do you
Yep.
guys want to play Magic for the next 4 hours and do basically nothing? Yeah, okay, I'll play Turgid. It's not like the deck is going off and doing crazy things. It's just everybody's out of cards, everybody's in top
Right.
deck mode, all the creatures are dead. Like, we're just sitting there staring at each other. You get to that stage in the late Commander game where people are on their phones, they're tuned out, like people are just not interested, and it's not fun. I would rather be doing anything else than that at that point, because it's just not, you can tell people are checked out and it's not interesting. And it's that's where you got to find, it's important. Like, I would always recommend to people, before you get salty, sit down and have a conversation. Let people know,
Yeah.
like, hey, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling about the games or power level discrepancies or whatever, and figure it out. Too many times, I think people just kind of sweep things under the rug and just hope that the player who's pub stomping, or if they are the pub stomping player, people will come up to my level, or they'll eventually figure out that, they're not gelling with the group. People don't always know. And Magic the Gathering, too, and this isn't meant to offend anybody or anything like that, but anybody who's played the game will understand this. It attracts some weird characters to the game. Magic the Gathering is a safe haven for everybody, of all different types of personalities and stuff. And so sometimes it's difficult for certain people to have those kind of conversations. And it can be very socially awkward to be like, bro, you're beating the shit out of us every game, and we probably should talk about that. Or I am not having any fun because I'm actually playing interaction and responding to things, and everybody else is just playing vanilla 7/7 green creatures, and then they're angry when I remove them. So you have to have like
Right.
that those tough talks sometimes, but I think they're so important, and ultimately that will be the thing that keeps Commander healthy moving forward, regardless of what Wizards of the Coast whatever Wizards of the Coast prints, is our ability to have conversations just like this around a Commander table.
I think to add to that, one of the biggest number one things that has been a massive lifesaver for Commander is the fact that the confrontation is always terrifying to walk into that conversation with somebody. And especially, I know PJ, like you said, you play a lot of MTGO. If you meet with a group regularly and you're meeting with your own group, obviously right now, it's a weird time in the world.
Yep.
Probably a lot of webcam games, probably a lot of social distancing, things like that. But if you're meeting with a group regularly and you're noticing that issue, it can always be hard to approach that conversation. but it is something that needs to be done. Just never approach it with confrontation to anybody
Yeah.
out there who might be having that issue. Don't approach it as if they're instantly going to get angry. I
Right.
think mentality is 100% of the thing. So it sounds like the problem overall, I think kind of hammering this down, the problem isn't really the power creep of the cards. It's the power creep of the meta. And it's people wanting to play at that higher level. Cause you mentioned people on their phones and people kind of distracted. I think we just kind of live in a shorter attention span now. And so those long grind fests, like I remember sitting down and slugging those games out. I'm sure you do too, PJ. I'm sure you do too, Lex, sitting for hours and hours on one game, knowing that no matter what, hell or high water, you're not going to walk away from that damn table. You are going to sit there until the final point of damage has been dealt and a winner has been declared, and you're engaged the entire time. I just think that maybe it might be more of the day and age rather than just necessarily the printing of the cards. And that just kind of clicked with me as we've kind of hammered this out. And then you brought up phones and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so true.
Yeah.
You know, the ability to just pick it up and boom, right there, you're gone.
Yeah,
it's gone.
We've
The
got
minute
more
that
and
phone
more
is in your
people
face, it's
entering
gone.
Commander every day, you know, and younger and younger people participating in the game. And, you know, we've got a whole generation of people very close by who are, you know, TikTok and stuff. It's 5-second instant gratification. And to think that won't affect Commander, I think, is kind of naive. There's going to be Magic is such a strange beast in the modern world. It's a thing where it's at its best when you're gathered with other people in person. That's such a unique thing today. Everything is digital. Everything's, you know, in your pocket. 13 seconds to get to it and open it and do a thing. I mean, they even have fucking idle games now. You don't even have to play video games anymore, and they just play themselves. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, Magic is not that. You don't have to be the most creative person, but you can be. You can be incredibly creative and build whatever you want. There has to be some modicum of respect and decorum with other people. You have to be able to conduct yourself like a human being and look other people in the eye and have a conversation with people. And you know, that it makes it such a unique and such an interesting thing. And that's, you know, to kind of wrap up all of these points and steer us toward the end of things here, that is something in this format I never want to see go away. I don't want power levels and everything to become so keyed up and brewing the most crazy competitive decks and making everything so hell-bent on winning and so focused on that aspect of the game that we forget to actually have the gathering. And if we lose that, we lose the heart of what the game is supposed to be. And I think that's exactly what makes Magic and Commander specifically so damn unique, is that it embodies the gathering like nothing else in Magic really ever has. And so, yeah, do either of you have any final points here?
I think with the ability that we have now, and especially with the platforms that we have, and to any content creators or to anybody that might just be consuming content, take this mentality and carry this with you into your next game night and have that conscientious thought right in the front of your brain that I am here to gather, and that at the end of the day, no matter how the games play out, or no matter if it's a slugfest or it's a turn 3, you know, stack lock. By the way, Draneth Magistrate was a card I never got around to talking about today.
Shout out to my boy, the bearded legend, man.
You want to have a 15-turn game, play a Draneth Magistrate on turn 2.
Yeah, fear the beard.
He gets it done. But you know, no matter what kind of games you're going to be looking at or where you're going to be heading with it, just remember that the gathering is the important part of the game, and that we are there for one another. We have this community and we have this opportunity to come together. And even in moments where, you know, we might be having natural disasters in PJ's case, or, you know, the entire world with 2020, God bless it. I'm glad to see that you're gone. Glad to see things rolling forward. Thank you, America. Getting some vaccines out there. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see what's going on. Let's stay safe though. It's not over. But with where we are now, make sure that you're carrying that mentality and carry that torch into your play group. Carry that attitude of, you know what, I'm here to gather. And if that means I got to tone it down a little bit, that means I got to take a couple pieces out of a deck just to kind of not not kill it, but just slow it a little, then do so. Or if you're noticing that you're falling behind at the table, talk to your table about a proxy. Not all of us have, mana crypt money. Not all of us have force of will money. That's okay, man. Print the card out. Print it out. Just print it out, shove it in a sleeve, good to go. Make sure that you're having those conversations. Make the game accessible to one another and make the game accessible for yourself. Don't make it more of a burden than it needs to be, because the important part is that you're sitting down with one another and we're having that interaction, which is something that I think right now, especially more than ever, is vital to us as a community. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, when you're sitting down in a shop, I think the biggest thing, this is the biggest thing, and a lot of people struggle with this. I especially did when I was younger. I've come a long ways. I've grown. Is just think about that other person for 5 seconds. You're there to have a good time. They're there just like you to have a good time. If you're pulling out some heinous deck that's got Winter Orb and Expropriate and whatever other nonsense going on, think about how that feels to them, and just give that a 5-second thought of maybe they're not having a good time if I'm doing all this stuff and they're trying to show me their banding tribal deck. Mm-hmm. So just try to keep other people in mind at least a little bit. And you're gonna meet a lot of different personalities in Magic. I've definitely met, for the most part, people are cool. There's one or two that stick out in my mind, that person definitely wasn't cool. Yeah. And those kind of stick with you. So not everyone's going to be having a good day all the time, or whatever the case is. So there's just a lot of people out there, a lot of personalities. But if you spend 5 seconds just trying to understand where the other person's coming from, I think you're all going to have a better time, doing anything really, but playing Magic.
Yeah, so true, today, and wonderful points from both of you gentlemen. And before we let you go here, PJ, I gotta ask you, put you on the spot here. If you could have wizards with all of this power creep going on, you could sit down in R&D and they say, PJ, today you're the boss. Okay, today you are Mark Rosewater, and you can make any Boros card you want. You can put anything you want on a Boros card. What would you make?
It just so happens that I have a Word doc with 50 of these on my desktop.
Oh my God, love it.
Yes. So what's actually tricky in answering this question now is that I got so many goodies in Commander Legends and Kaldheim that it's legitimately difficult for me to answer the question. The three things that I always kind of talk about are white card draw, white tutors, and the white finisher. Mm-hmm. So it would be some brand of those things. Gavin did that video a week or two ago talking about Flash in white. I would probably go for the white Crater Hoof, something with Flash, probably gives team double strike, makes a couple tokens, gonna put a lot of power onto the board, 7 or 8 mana, something like that. That white finisher, I think is something that needs to be addressed a little bit, but the white tutor and the white card draw are also things. I think red is in a really good spot right now. Red got so many cool things.
Yeah, Jessica's Will. Card is a monster.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, Jessica's Will is insane.
Yep.
Ridiculous Magic card. Random one, I kind of want Sword of Dungeons and Dragons in black border.
Oh, yeah. That would be cool. That would be cool.
Also, the Triple Strike Goblin. Triple Strike is one that I talk about all the time. I just want those cards in black border. But I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other things, but those are the fun ones.
Yeah, no.
So I thought of a white finisher. I was like, what about Elish Norn? Let's bring her back. Because we already got a Vorinclex, so let's bring Elish Norn back up in here.
There you go.
That's what I was hoping on.
Yep.
But let's bring her back up in here with an ETB. She has an ETB that you can abuse with Brago. And you can go ahead and just run out there and go fetch you up a little white card, but make it restricted. The tutor is only for any white card. You can't look for anything else, just white.
Yeah, I have thought about that exact design actually. I'm like, that seems legit.
It seems reasonable.
Yeah,
it's not asking much.
Yeah, it's a very legit card.
So Watsy, if you're listening, you need to hire PJ when you're doing anything Boros. You bring him in, you pay him a small fee, pay for a plane ticket. He's like, PJ, dude, you're a Boros man, the king of Boros. Tell us how to actually make this color scheme not suck. So
I would love it.
condone
I would
this.
love that opportunity. I would be so incredibly happy and honored to print cards for WotC.
Oh, PJ, it has been an absolute blast having you on tonight. Thank you so much, or today, or whenever anybody's listening to this, watching this. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out in the dojo for a little bit, taking a trip on the Bro Tour with Sloan and I. And yeah, for those of you who have not already, go subscribe to Commander Replay. Help this man get to 12,000 subscribers. He definitely deserves it.
Let's get it.
He's a cool cat with some great content out there. If you love Commander gameplay, MTGO gameplay, go check him out. Go listen to that crazy awesome intro and get yourself motivated. Use it to help you, get pumped up to play some Magic. And yeah, once again, PJ, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's been a ton of fun. Thank you so much for all the praise, a lot of kind words. So I really do appreciate that. And yeah, it's been awesome. And hopefully I'll be back soon.
Yeah, and we would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
Anytime you got an open invitation, just let me know, and the Bro Tour is here for you. But
Absolutely.
with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you know the deal. Well, no ladies, mostly gentlemen. I've seen my analytics. It's 99.4% male. So mostly gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking a little trip with us today on the Bro Tour, coming down into the dojo and hanging out and listening. If you have listened all the way to the bitter end, first of all, you are a badass. And secondly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you've listened to this much content and you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, what the hell are you doing with your life? It's just click the button already. And smash the like button while you're over there too, because you got to do that. It's obligatory. And leave a comment down below. Let us know some of your thoughts about Power Creep and Commander, how things have changed in the time that you've been playing, maybe some interesting cards you'd like to see if you could go be a card designer for a day over at Wizards of the Coast. And with all of that being said, we will see you next time. Stay safe, stay happy. Peace.
Bye.